Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah adada khalqihi rida nafsihi wa zinatu arshi. ومداد كلماته ومنتهى علمي وجمع مشاعر وخلق وذرع وبرع علم الغيب شهادة الرحمن الرحيم المالك القدوس العزيز الحكيم وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك له الحمد يحيي ويميت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وحبيبه وخليله وأرسله بهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله لو كرهت المشركين ما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So basically what we'll be discussing is some points from our community's 10-point Madinah program. And there was a lot of key points from when I walked through the door and caught that Amir Ismail made, which is kind of funny how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kind of like connected our minds about it, because I haven't really talked to him since I've been here. Actually, I haven't even talked to him probably almost like a real conversation, almost like 2 weeks. But I was preparing and researching for this particular lecture, and I was looking in the excuse me, the Bayan al-Wujub al-Hijra. It's a book about the explanation of the obligation of Hijra by Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio. And I kind of started thinking, because myself, I'm a person who converted to Islam. I have a background that I'm not proud of, not too ashamed of either, because it was my pathway what led me to Islam. But one of the things I was thinking of as a young man when I was growing up, one of the things that I've always noticed in our communities within, New York, was that there was always a Muslim around. There was always a Muslim. You knew that there was the NOI, the Nation of Islam, but you always knew there was a Muslim. And not only were it just the fact that they were Muslim, but many of them were Sunni Muslims, what they translate as the Orthodox Muslim, right? And then you also had another group that also had an influence, and I'm starting to notice, and the light is starting to switch as I get older. And I watch the transformation, because me, myself, I'm more like the first, generation of Muslim in my family. And, as a father of 18 children, they are the second generation of Muslims within, my family, coming from our lineage. Me and my younger brother were both converts to Islam, and a lot of our inspiration to become Muslim was influenced by our love and connection and reading and things of that nature to Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, also known as Malcolm X, rahimahullah. As I grew up, I think I told this story before, I told it many times, I really didn't have an attraction. I didn't like the Nation of Islam. I liked their rhetoric, but I didn't like them as an organization, because me, this is just, how we grew up. It was, anybody know the 80s wasn't as bad as the 50s and 60s, but however, there was a line drawn, right? And being in New York, what they call gentrified now, post, before pre-60s era, you would have considered it segregated, right? Where not to cross a certain line, don't go in that neighborhood. And if you in that neighborhood, maybe back in the days, they would have some crazy white guys chase you out of the neighborhood, but now they just got police officers. They'll just call the cops on you. Oh, you fit the description of a burglary. You may not even did anything. You just walk through the neighborhood. Now you're getting picked up and brought down through the precinct. So this liking that I had for white American culture was way before Islam. Matter of fact, it was probably my grandmother's fault because of the type of person she was. But however, I always viewed the NOI as some angry black people that envy white people. Their rhetoric was pro-black politics. So I transferred, I bypassed that. And I used to see these guys who used to wear the thobe, walking around in my projects, and they were selling incense and oils, and their women were wearing all these garbs, and their little children was running around and things like that, and here we all sitting around and trying to, like looking at life. We used to criticize, we used to call the mother, one family in our square. There was a couple Muslim families in our square, but this one lady, she used to wear a full veil, or face cover everything, right? So we used to sit around and we used to be like, man, here come the ninja lady. She's gonna sell us some incense, right? So we used to say those kind of things. But deep down inside, I admired that. I admired it so much that me and my friend, we ended up getting in a fight behind it, because we were sitting on the little monkey bars, and we were conversing, we were talking, and I said to him, when I get older, I'm gonna have my wife dressed like that. He said, yeah, your wife dressed like a ninja? And I said, yeah, why? He was like, man, you stupid. And I said, no, you stupid. So we got a little fight, a little kids, a little scuffle over this. So as I got older, I got into the streets. And as the more you get into the streets, and anybody that's in the streets, death in the streets was almost looked at as like if you were a martyr, and going to jail was almost like going to hell. So your focus started to become a little different. And you started taking on this mentality because it has its own culture. The streets has its own culture. And so as a young man, from 13, I started kind of young. I started running the streets about 12 years old. So from about 13 to 15, by the time I hit 16, I was burnt out. Each year, I didn't expect to live another year, right? And so as every year, it was like, if I was 15, I said, man, I ain't gonna make it to 16. Because that's just how many people were dying. So you go from 15 to 16, man, I ain't gonna make it. But then I'm starting to look around the neighborhood, and I'm seeing a lot of guys who used to be like recognized as old gangsters. They all Muslim. They got on kufi, similar to the brother's kufi right here. That was the old popular kufi back in the day, old knitted joint. And he always had his kufi on. And one thing we always seen with this man was he always had his children with him. And we admired that. Because you're growing up in a neighborhood, a congested neighborhood, we're living on top of each other, and poverty was very obvious. And we're looking around, and we see this man who we all knew was in the streets. He used to run the block, and now he has on his kufi and he got his children. And we looking at him like, yo, what's up with you? Me, I was curious. Yo, what was it that made you change? Another guy know, seeing the same thing. I started seeing this more and more and more. So it started looking like Islam was the solution to the problems. That's what it was looking like. That you couldn't tell me anything different. And so the more I talked to different Muslims, I used to talk to them, find out different things. I wasn't one of them like ignorant guys and thought that the streets was the end all be all. First of all, I grew up in a strict Christian household. So I already knew the streets wasn't me. I wasn't the kind of guy that liked to lie and pretend to be something that I wasn't, right? I knew it. I don't know how I got there, because I even said this to myself at a time when I turned 16. I walked in my house, leaving from outside, coming, because where I used to live, I used to have a lot of beef with a lot of people. And I'm going into the house, going into my grandmother's house at that. Going into my grandmother's house, people shooting at me. I get in the house, I said, man, you know what? I wasn't raised like this. This stuff is getting corny. Yeah, shoot back, or get shot at. Kill, be killed, police chasing you, police shooting at you, beating you up. I said, man, this can't be life. I said, I need a religion. So I was talking to my girlfriend at the time, who later on became Muslim and became my wife. I said to her, I need a religion. She was like, well, you always go to church. I don't go to church. I said it just like that. Church, man, I grew up in my church. I left the church at 10. Ain't going to church. What's wrong with you? Well, I was offended that she even recommended that I go to church. So she was like, well, you become a 5%er. 5% is a little religion. It's a spinoff of the Nation of Islam. It's like New York's religion, right? And I was just like, nah, man, I can't even look my family in the face and say that the black man is God. I said, I can't do that. It just ain't gonna work. She's like, well, what you gonna do? I said, I think about becoming Muslim. She was like, what you mean? I said, I think about becoming Muslim. So she says, well, well, if you're gonna get all them wives, you don't even count on me being there. I was like, man, I ain't even talking about all that right now, right? I'll try to find something to give myself some guidance. And so from that point, the door opened for Islam. Now, then later on, probably about a year, maybe almost 2 years later, there was a guy I met in the streets, which is the same guy that actually gave me dawah, and I'm responsible. He's kind of responsible for influencing my shahada. Well, in the streets, we was on the opposite teams, right? We liked each other, but we didn't like each other, if you can kind of get what I'm saying. So we had some issues with some friends of his, and my crew had issues with his crew, and basically we was gonna kill each other. Then later on, we all get locked up. And who I get locked up with? The same man that I was plotting on killing. So I don't know what happened. We just started talking, and I didn't even know he was Muslim when we were in the streets. Because you gotta remember, I told you my introduction was all of the old gangsters that was running the streets and now Muslim wearing kufis with their children and things. And so now I'm in here with this guy, me and him are the same age. So now I'm looking at him, and so we in there, we talking, and we had an incident. And it almost led to like gunfire and things like that. And we resolved it with words. So when we seen each other, we were locked up. We seen each other in jail. It was kind of like a cordial relationship. So one day I came, because my cell was upstairs, his cell was downstairs. So I came downstairs through the day room and everything, and went to go, knock on his cell door because the door was closed. And I pressed the light, and I seen him in sujood. I'm like, yo, what are you doing? So I'm like, and at the time I'm just being nosy, right? And so one of the guys that was sitting there playing cards, they're like, yo, he make a salat, man. I'm like, salat? I was like, all right. So I walked away from his door. He comes back out. He's like, what's up? What you wanted? I said, well, I wanted to talk to you about something. Let me ask you a question, though. You Muslim? And he was like, well, yeah. I said, I ain't never knew that. He was like, well, I was in the streets, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like, yo, you got one of them Qur'ans and stuff? Like, you like a Malcolm Muslim, or you a Nation of Islam? Because he ain't have a beard anyway. He got like 19 years old. So he couldn't grow a beard. And I known him for a long time, so we always used to joke. He didn't grow a beard until about 25. Me, I had a beard at like 13 years old. So, so we used to joke. We always joked about that. He just now getting a beard, matter of fact. And I seen him not too long ago. So, but anyway, so I asked him, like, yo, you like a Malcolm Muslim, or you one of them NOI dudes? He's like, nah, man, they ain't Muslim, man. And, I'll tell you about that later. But why, what's up? You want to be Muslim or something? I said, I always wanted to. I said, what you going to tell me about the religion? So then he was like, I'm going to get you some literature to read. I was like, well, you can't tell me, what it's about now. So we started, talking about Islam. So then I seen that he had his Quran. He had the big old school Yusuf Ali, big thick joint, right? He had it wrapped up in a towel. So I'm like, what's that big book in the towel? He was like, oh, that's the Quran. And I was like, oh, man, let me see it. So he automatically went to get it, but when he went to hand it to me, he said, you really can't touch this. You ain't Muslim. You're not pure. I'm like, wow. He thought he offended me. He didn't offend me. I'm like, yo, that's deep. I can't touch the book because I ain't pure? Yo, this has got to be it. See, I'm hyped now. He thinking like, bro, I'm sorry. Nah, you ain't got to apologize. I know this is it right here. You tell me I can't touch your book. I can't touch your book because I ain't pure. Yo, wait a minute. Ain't nobody ever told me this. You see what I'm saying? So this was all new to me. I'm fascinated. I'm a person that, is fascinated by the truth, and I'm trying to learn. So when he did that, that was it. I was like, man, I'm almost sold now. I was like, so what was that thing you was doing when you had your head on the floor? He was like, I was making salat. And I was like, oh, all right. So when you become Muslim, you gotta make salat. He's like, yeah, 5 times a day. So he started breaking all those things down. So then after that, I took some time, and me and my grandmother at the time, we were very close, and my grandmother was like the matriarch of the family because my grandfather had died way before. I think my grandfather died when my grandmother was when my mother was about 8 years old. So I never met my grandfather, but my grandmother told me so much about him, you would have thought me and him sat side by side, right? And the same love and admiration she had, I had the same admiration for him as well. So I wrote home and informed everyone about my decision of becoming Muslim. My mother didn't have an objection to it. She was like pretty much anything as long as it keeps you out the streets. My grandmother, that was the one whose opinion I was really concerned about because, from a young boy, she always kept me under her wing and always took me to church with her and everything, made sure. I so much so, he's so Christian. The only book I read when I was a kid from 4 years old was a Bible. I had a picture Bible at 3. You see what I'm saying? So that, so anyway, so make a long story short, I went through this and I wrote her. My first Quran that I ever had came from my mother. My prayer rug that I have, that I still have right now, it's in Masjid Uthman and 40 and starting to get holes in it. Well, my grandmother bought it, right? So this is how supportive of the family it was. Once after I became Muslim, I realized how cold the world was, how the Muslims weren't as close as I thought they were. When I came in the masajid, it was an argument of whether you took Shahada in jail or whether you became Muslim, or whether you were born Muslim. You got that kind of treatment. If you were unemployed, a young man sitting in the masjid rather than hitting somebody over the head, or you just sitting around all day. I started realizing how callous people were. I said, man, this ain't really no different than being in the streets. But a good thing I've been through the streets, so I know how to maneuver. Your words ain't gonna hurt me. I got tough skin. Right? Some other people ran them out the masjid. Me, I got tough skin. I'm like, man, come on, man. I never been one to, soft to somebody's criticism. Matter of fact, it motivated me, right? Then I started realizing that we really had a real problem, that I knew this problem existed when I wasn't Muslim, but I realized it didn't really become fine-tuned to me until I became Muslim, that there's a big issue between the elders and the youth. The youth almost to the extent where it almost think that your elders hated you. And you be like, well, why are you always criticizing me so hard? Why are you always trying to come down on me so hard? You ain't even got no gentle words. What's up with you? Because y'all don't listen. Dude, I don't live with you. I ain't your son. Why are you talking to me like that? It started getting to that point. This is way before the whole Sufi Salafi argument. This is way before that. So I started realizing, I said, wait a minute, what's going on? What's going on? I know that this is what it is. But one thing, one brother told me, he told me this one thing. He said, and I live by it. He said, you're going to see a lot of things go on now that you're Muslim. But if it ain't got nothing to do with Allah and his messenger, don't worry about it. And that was the one thing that kept me motivated. The masjid being the centerpiece, the puzzle of the community, is what kept me from going back to prison. I stayed in the masjid because I didn't want to be in the streets. And I got a lot of stories I can share with you about my journey and how I got to the masjid, but that's irrelevant. And so my point of mentioning all this is that at one point in the American Muslim's life, Islam was the thing that they seen that helped them change who they once were. This isn't the case no more. This isn't the case no more. Now what you have is a whole nother movement of youth. Now I'm like the old head, and I ain't even that old, right? But now I'm the young bucks old head now. They have their own brand or their own style that they're trying to bring to Islam. Now, yes, okay, the outward clothing, all right, cool, I like that. I like your vigor, I like your ambition. But what positive influence is it having on the community? Very minimal. What influence is it doing? Most of the shahadas that you're getting now are people in their 20s on down to their teens. And, in Philly, most people are like, oh, man, Philly, y'all got Muslims walking around. Listen, most of them guys that's walking around that's claiming Muslim, they barely know anything about Islam. Don't let the fake Arabic accent fool you. It's just like you go anywhere else. The one thing they do have is they have this courage. That's what I call it, this courage. And they make you embrace their Islam. They make you embrace, where it's a common thing, a common thing, you be talking to a non-Muslim, you're like, yeah, all right, man, I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. They know what you mean. Some people, they know what you mean. You talk about, you be like, look, man, I got to grab me a book of hadith. They know what you mean. This is how common it is. And it's not just restricted to just the black community. It's overall. You got Italians in Italian neighborhoods, Muslims. You got Puerto Rican Muslims, Korean Muslims, black Muslims, African. You got it all right there. It's that common. It's that common. And at one point in time where people used to make fun of men for wearing thobes, oh, you wearing dresses and stuff like that. I never been insulted by a non-Muslim like that. It's always Muslims. It's always the Muslims in the masjid. Y'all wearing dresses. My perception of Muslims had changed once I became Muslim. It almost had me like, I'm ready to revert back to who I used to be because you dudes don't know no respect. Y'all don't have no respect. One thing you had in the streets was a boundary called respect, because if you didn't, somebody would punch you in your mouth. But you become Muslim, Muslims say whatever they want to you and act like, hey, you got to take it. I'm your brother in Islam, right? You see what I'm saying? So what we show people when they come into the masjid is what they go with, and that's their energy. Now, how does this all tie into the 10-point Medina program? Because if you go back in the 90s, early 2000s, and people were influenced based on personality. Personality is not influencing nobody no more, because these guys are waking up Muslim. Last time I visited New York, I went up there to go see my daughter, and I was talking to her mother, and I was asking about some of my old friends. She was like, oh man, she's like, they all became Muslim. That's like the street religion now. Everybody's Muslim now in the streets. Anybody in the streets is Muslim. And I'm like, wow, like, okay. Like, really, they all became Muslim? Yeah, everybody in the streets Muslim. They pray and they sell their dope at night. Wow. Right? So it's no longer about the personality. So I realized in this reflection, of my journey of life, I realized that not only that, you have to create an environment. You have to create an environment. Now, the environment in New York, it was you'll have the masjid if you were in Brooklyn. It didn't matter where you at. You'll have the masjid, and you usually have people that live near the masjid. The adhan was called. You hear the adhan, you go to the masjid, right? If you didn't live near the masjid, usually when you came to the masjid, there wasn't a masjid in your neighborhood. When you came out and went to the masjid, you stayed there until Isha and you went home. That's how you stayed out of the prison. So environment plays a major role. It plays a major part. As time went on, things started changing, and the masjid was no longer the source of peace. It became the source of argumentation, because you have multiple personalities. And within the multiple personalities, you still have people that harbor their personal feelings, right? So then you'll see different people from various backgrounds. You might have a person that used to be an old drug dealer. You may have a person that used to be on drugs, right? You may have a person that never done crime in his life. He might be a cop, right? And then in their line of profession, they all hate each other, right? And now they're all in the masjid, and instead of them unifying based on what Allah Ta'ala said, right, they're all still holding their personal gripes against one another. They're still holding their personal feelings. So one of the first things that I mentioned, that I realized, is that deen is not paramount no more. Deen is not paramount. When deen is paramount, what you'll do is you will make your life center around your Islam, and not Islam center around your life. You'll make your life center around Islam, and not your life center, make Islam center around your life. So the point that what I was mentioning, the book that I was reading today, I just highlighted a certain point out of there that was by Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio, and then I'll get right into the points that I'm supposed to mention. The Sheikh, he says, وَقُلْتُ كما يجب ترجيح حافظه على باقي كليات خمسة التي هي حفظ النفس، حفظ العقل، والنسب نسب ومال، والحق بعضهم أرض، وحفظ الدين نفس، مال نساب ومثلها، وعقل وعرض قد وجب. Right? He says وأكاد خمسة دين لأن حفظ غيره صلات حفظات ثم حفظ النفس حفظ نفس لنفس النفس. It's a mistake in the typing. ثم أقول ثم أنساب ثم أموال وفي مرتب مرتباتها وأعراض وإن لم تؤدي أذية فيها إذا قطع نساب ولا كانت في مرتب أنساب ثم قال قد وجب الحفظ جميعا في جميع الشارع لشرافها. He said, in translation, the Sheikh, he said, I would like to add that it's necessary to give preference to it, meaning the deen. This is what he's talking about, right? Because what Islam circles out is 5 universals, okay? Now, anybody studying anything pertaining to psychology, if you look at the Maslow theory, right? He has his hierarchies and needs and so on and so forth. A lot of these concepts were borrowed from Islam. You have what is called the 5 faculties, or kuliyatu khamsa, and some say kuliyatu sitta, some say the faculties, 6 faculties. Islam has come to preserve these 5 things, right? The 5 things that Islam came to preserve, the first one is the deen, is your deen overall as a Muslim, all right? The second thing that it mentions is the preservation of self or your soul, right? Meaning life shouldn't be taken. You shouldn't take life, nor nobody should take your life. Hifdul amwal, preservation of your wealth. No one should steal from you, right? No theft or robbery or things like this. Islam comes to protect these things. Also the hifdul aql, your intellect, right? How does Islam protect your intellect? By the prohibition of intoxicants, not smoking marijuana, whatever, however you get intoxicated, whether you sniff it, inhale it, drink it, put it on your skin, it's a topical, whatever, however you use it. Islam is prohibited. Allah Ta'ala has prohibited these things in order to preserve your mind. Because if you ever seen a person that took a trip, smoking wet, they go out, or LSD, whatever you call that stuff, abominant fluid, they go out on another planet somewhere, right? And these people almost become like a creature, right? Me, I work in the EMS field, so sometimes you got to tackle these guys. you got to tackle them, put them on a stretcher. You got to like put them in the chokehold without getting yourself in trouble for somebody having you on camera. EMS, along with the law enforcement officers in Philadelphia, beat a man half to death. He was naked, didn't have a weapon on him, because these guys get naked. They strip down in the street. Butt naked. I can't wrestle somebody 250 pounds, 6'2", butt naked. I'm sorry. Right? But it's real. So, Allah put things in place for our own protection. And sometimes with this dead end, nobody loves me type of mentality, you begin to ignore what Allah wants from you. You rather walk around in soap and sorrow so that you can keep walking around so that you can get high or drunk off of, and just keep making excuses on why your life is in the same way it is. All right? And this is what happened. This is American culture, right? It was just as much as a Muslim culture, Arab culture as well. You have to read, if you want to be a good Muslim today, one thing I recommend is that you always have to read the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, the biography of the Prophet ﷺ. A lot of us were influenced and took Shahada based off of knowing about Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz. So how do you think you're going to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you don't read the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, his biography? You can't possibly think that you will do. In our behavior, our actions display that sometimes we believe that we know more than Rasulullah ﷺ. And it's sad. We really believe it. And we won't verbalize it, but our behavior says contrary. Our behavior says contrary, right? How many people I met in life, right? I had a conversation with somebody. I had this problem when I first became Muslim, but I was never as bold as this person, right? When you relieve yourself in the bathroom, and this is something mundane, using the bathroom. This is how most people think. It's just mundane. It ain't no big deal. What hand are you supposed to use to clean yourself with? Your left hand, right? As somebody boldly tell me, I ain't doing all that. I ain't got time for that. But you be like, well, this is what the Prophet says. I understand. I just can't do it. And I ain't gonna try to do it either. That is a loser, nobody loves me mentality. Think about it. I grew up in the 80s. It was very common to have somebody that didn't know how to read. They did not know how to read. What was some of their characteristics? They were extremely volatile. They were they'll just go from 0 to 60. You ask them about reading anything, they're almost ready to kill you. Ask them about reading something, they got excuses, man. I ain't gonna learn, I ain't reading that white man stuff. Immediately, right? What is the behavior of the Muslims? Wipe with your left hand. Man, I ain't got time for all that, man. Hey, listen, man, I'm a black man, man. I ain't following no Arab religion. Same way you didn't want to read the white man's English. See the parallel? Same mentality. It's not Islam that's the problem, it's you. We have to create these atmospheres. Preservation of deen is paramount. So the next thing that he mentions after preservation of intellect, preservation of lineage. Now, family, I don't know about here, but I know it's here. I can't front, but I know up north. I don't bang with my family like that anyway. I can't wait. You got your children growing up under you. Can't wait to move out the house and get away from you. Can't stand my mom. Can't stand my dad. Preservation of lineage. Islam encourages it, but we don't practice that. Well, what about if your mom was on drugs? It's still your mother. I don't care what drug she was on. If you really that concerned about your mother and her drug problem, then you would take the time to get her off of her drugs. You will fight relentlessly. You wouldn't give up. But today, they use that. Man, I get high because my mama got high, man. My daddy was high. My daddy was a pimp. He was this, that, and the third, and that's what I'm going to be. The Prophet ﷺ never grew up with his biological father. He never grew up with a biological father. So therefore, it's a sign that there can be a good man still without his biological father. But you need male influence. Because he wasn't left alone. He had his uncle to raise him, right? He wasn't left alone. So, but anyway, the next thing that the Sheikh he mentions about after preservation of lineage, the last of it is preservation of wealth. Now, naturally, human beings, out of all 5 things that I mentioned, only 4 of them most people are concerned about. They're either only concerned about their wealth, they're either only concerned about their lineage, they're either only concerned about their self, or they may be concerned about their intellect, but not so much so not getting high, but more so about reading something to become intelligent. All right? But when it comes to deen, because we don't live in a Christian society, that is a front. We live in a secular society. We live in an atheist society. We live in an agnostic society. We don't live in a Christian society. It is not. The inhabitants in this country, maybe some of them may be Christian, but by default, with your politics and everything, if you think that you can separate Allah from politics, then you're in trouble. Clear sign of it is that the ongoing battle that the Muslims are having about voting. Ongoing. All our problems will go away. We just vote Trump out of here. It don't matter which one of them devils you vote in there. Obama's the devil. Trump's the devil. All of them. Because they all have the same agenda, a legacy. We don't understand government. We don't understand power and authority. Authority's built and nobody brings it up, or you can vote and just change everything. That's not how a society is ran. The only thing America did is the main thing where America make other countries look bad, they use the word dictator. The only difference that America does is that they put up a front and let you vote in a figurehead every 4 years, but his Congress and his Senate remains the same. So they uphold the theory in the law. Right? They uphold the theory and law because many of the ignorant, the untrained mind only see the personality, and they fall in love with the personality and looking for somebody to point the finger at. Oh, it's Trump's fault we ain't got no food stamps this year. Next one comes in, he gives you a little bit more food stamps. Are you serious? This is what you base it on? There's some perks to it. I never voted. Right? I made a joke the other day because I went to go get my medication and my copay was a lot lower. And I said to my wife, Alhamdulillah, Trump made it easy and more affordable for me, and I ain't even have to vote for him. Right? But you have to understand politics. Now, how does this relate to us? We have our own politics, and I'm gonna finish translating this so that you understand where I'm coming from. Our own politics is Islam. But it doesn't mean that you have to become apolitical. You have to be a person that's absolutely within Islam in itself. If you live your life according to the concepts that's already structured in this supremacist system, that's already structured, you will be going nowhere. Because for over 20 years, I watched the Muslims, and I was part of the process, call ourselves building a community, but still using the same old structure, systematic. Most of us run masajids like they run churches. You got the board, you got the pastor, it still runs the same exact way. Most masjids, you vote your imam out every 4 years. You change your board every 4 years. That's not shura. That's not the concept of shura, right? That's not how it goes. So what that shows you is if the power, the authoritative figure is flawed in his thinking, then the followers are going to be just as flawed. Probably even worse, because they don't even understand the nature of what's going on up top. So you see, this is how it is passing down. It's just passing down an empty legacy, and it's just getting younger and younger. Most masjids don't have an imam, but they have a board. And so then what they do is they bring in an imam, every here and there, or they got a constant rotation of lecturers. And the lecture and khutbah circuit now has become the new Chitlin circuit. That's exactly what it is. We know this stuff from the plantation. All you got to do, go back and look at the history. The imam there is to put the masses to sleep. It's not there to wake them up, right? So therefore, and then what happens? Then you start seeing something, and every person's aware, their awareness for different issues on different levels. Every person has a particular awareness. This person here may know something about, able to tell you about, politics and things of this nature. This person here may be a scholar in Arabic. This person here may be very strong in history. This person here, but you don't have that one thing embodied under everything. But the new thing now is that everyone is becoming, it's almost like that, what they call it, television, televangelism. That's what they call it. Where you got your evangelists on the television, like Reverend Ike and all them guys. I know about Reverend Ike because my great-grandmother loved Reverend Ike, man. She had the power oil, the money oil. I just seen on YouTube, somebody had one of his old lectures. I was cracking up when I seen it. How to make your money come to you, Reverend Ike. My grandmother had every Reverend Ike calendar there was, man. She loved Reverend Ike. My great-grandmother. Not my grandmother, though. But anyway, so... No, you the cloth and the everything. And my great grandmother, she was from down here in North Carolina. I can't remember what part. Her mother was from the plantation. My great grandmother was born on a plantation. I can't remember what town it is down here in North Carolina. So they came with all that. They brought all that. Reverend Ike, everything, right? But anyway, and so imams are becoming like this now. And so if you look in the black community, we used to be concerned about everything overall that was surrounding our communities. Well, that ain't the case no more. The only thing we seem to be concerned about now is either you got a job or you don't got a job, and if you got a wife or a husband. That is all we've restricted our Islam to. Then you get those who want to step up and learn a couple phrases of Arabic. Then you got a couple that step up and learn a little bit of Aqidah, and some that learn a little bit of fiqh, and some learn a little bit of Tasawwuf, some learn a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But it all comes back to, they all got one thing. They family and their money. That's the only thing they're concerned about, right? And most imams, they putting you to sleep. Most imams are gaining their doctorates and master's degree in psychology based off of educating, right? Educating Muslims about how their wives are flawed or how their husbands is lacking in this era, and this is what I think, because it's easy to identify the symptoms, right? When you work in medicine, what puts the doctor over everyone else and nurse over other people, each level, because they're able to look at the symptoms. Everybody learns the symptoms. Even CNA learn the symptoms. They be like, well, common fever, that might be an infection, or it might be this, it might be that. You learn the symptoms, but can you really tell where it comes from? What part of the body does it destroy? And what's the cure for it? Well, most imams are able to point out problems, but they're not offering a solution. And then when you start talking about a problem, and you got to understand, because we come from a long legacy of talk, right? The only way you're going to begin to get an industrial revolution, for lack of better words, is that you have to have an intellectual one first. An intellectual revolution, where it all starts at. What did the Prophet say? What was the first surah revealed to the Prophet? First ayahs. Iqra, Bismi Rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read in the name of your Lord. So why are we downplaying education, the role of education, right? But then that gets muddy waters. And I'm a person that, I've been Muslim over 20 something years, and I done watched how the community go at it. So they'd be like, yeah, we need to get education. So then what happens is the education, we start to secularize education, right? So instead of including not only learning, about fiqh and aqidah and things of that nature, then what you have is you have the one group, you have two extremes. One group will ostracize learning the skills so that you can gain gainful employment or start your own business, still employment, right? Or you have the other group that put down learning those things of aqidah, fiqh, and those things of that nature, and saying, hey, look, you need to pay more attention to this. Every time you turn around, the community is divided. But we keep screaming, well, we're all divided. You've been divided. Because by Americans, by default, you're taught to be very opinionated. Very opinionated. You got an opinion about everything. So much so that you got an opinion about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that all started, if you think about it, you go back to some of your teachings, right? When you ask people about polygyny, I think I said this before here in this masjid. Most people, you ain't got to do it, or you ain't got this, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. But how about the fact that just Allah said in the Quran? We start talking about eating halal food. Well, if you're poor, you can't eat that, and you can eat this, and you eat that. Everything in the Quran there's an argument for. Everything. We argue. I'm not talking about it coming from revelation. We argue against it. Well, you got to pray 5 prayers a day. Man, it's hard to get, it's hard to pray 5 prayers a day, man. Sometimes I got to, you understand what I'm saying? You got to fast 30 days of Ramadan. Like, man, sometimes I can't fast over my Ramadan, man, because, I get hungry, man. It's like 16 hours of fasting. Every single thing. And we have no shyness in it. We argue against what Allah Ta'ala says. And then what happens? You'll find a group of people to be with that agree with what you're saying. And you'll find a group of people that oppose what you're saying. But we keep wondering why we're so divided, right? Now, just to finish up what the Sheikh is saying. So he says about the preservation of the deen, your religion, yourself, your intellect, your lineage, your wealth, right? And he said that some scholars have added your honor, your reputation, right? This is why backbiting and slandering is a crime in Islam. Because you're destroying someone's honor and reputation. A person has a right to live life without a damaged reputation, right? Now, he says, the most important of the 5 matters is the deen, because the preservation of others is only a means of preserving it, right? So meaning all of the other things that's mentioned comes by means of the deen. The deen has all of this all wrapped up in one thing, right? And we mentioned some of them. You see me mention some of them. When I say intellect, talk about intoxicants, right? We talking about honor. We talking about backbiting and slandering. These things are a crime. We talking about lineage. Now, one thing I want to just point out that's very important with regards to lineage. I don't know, this became a new culture. I don't know where we're walking away from it. But at one point in time, marriage was something that was very, very common in every community. Now, fornication is more common. Having a child out of wedlock is the new way of getting married now, because the people become more committed to each other. If you turn back the hands of time, back to the 80s, they were claiming that fathers were running away from their children. And they were, because they'd be like, me, child, what? I ain't ready for no children. I ain't responsible enough. I ain't even got a job. I ain't got no money. I ain't got this. Now, you don't need money, job, or none of that, because you're having access. People are fornicating and committing adultery and fornicating, and they're having children. Then after that child is born, then it's like, well, we might as well just stay together for the sake of kids. Mind state plays everything. Mind state plays everything. Most people are usually, I'm telling you, they're fornicating together, sleeping together, living together, and then they say, hey, let's go ahead and get married, right? Islam doesn't promote that. Islam doesn't promote that. So, but anyway, so he says that out of the 5, deen is the most important for far as preservation. He said preservation of the soul, and then the intellect, and then the lineage, and then the wealth, and some importance as to the latter, preservation of honor. So as long as injury does not lead to breaking the bonds of kinship, otherwise on all level preservation of lineage, right? So it's very important you keep all of these things together, because the wealth sustains the lineage as well, right? The nafs, you have to be alive to preserve your lineage. So all of that's what it means. So Islam is not, not for you to break kith and kin, right? It's very important. Matter of fact, the bloodline in Islam comes through the father's side, right? It comes through the father's side. The father, the children would inherit it. If you had children that were born in wedlock, and that was, Muslim parents, then the child would rightfully just be considered Muslim. Rightfully, right? It's debate, it's some discussion about whether or not once the child becomes pubescent, should they, take shahada or not. There's some discussion about that. So, but anyway, so he says, he quotes Imam Lakhani. He says, in all systems of the Sharia, it is essential to preserve all of them because of their honorable status, right? So the whole concept is the preservation of this. Now, why is this so important? Because we mentioned that preservation of the deen is the thing that's most important. You have to preserve the deen. This is the most important thing. So, which brings us now to our points of the 10-point Medina program. Now, this idea that we came up with, it's not really nothing new. All it is Islam. But because of the time period that we live in, some things has to be summarized, right? Some it displays an understanding of the time period you live in, because the teacher, the author, they write according to the audience where they living in the time period. I don't expect anyone to this is the role of contemporary scholars, right? And I'm not talking about a group of people that live somewhere across the ocean. I'm talking about just right here. It's very important, which is part of the 10-point Medina program, but it's very important to raise people of knowledge amongst you. The thing that happens is that we don't know our limits. We don't know our limits. You'll have a person that's studying. Sometimes people studying, especially within the American communities, they're studying in order to knock off the imam. They want to be the next imam. They're like, you're studying hard now. Like, yeah, all right, I know I'm gonna once I get finished studying, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna shut the whole masjid down, open my own. Right? We had that era too. This is what you're seeing in now. Most of the splitting that you see going on now. Remember, 90s and 2000s, masjids were very popular. Right? 2010s, it's all about the institutions now. It's no longer about masjids, right? The masjid is a sign. It's what they call a sha'ir, a sign of Islam. It's a sign. Because all you have to do, remember I said make reference, always read the seerah. When the Prophet ﷺ left from Mecca to Medina, they left in order to preserve their Islam. They left in order to keep their Islam. The people in Mecca, they were being persecuted. Their families were disowning them, right? And there was a lot of good that happened as well, but life started to become tough for them to live in Mecca. They boycotted them economically, right? And so on and so forth. You know why you're able to be able to freely claim Islam in America? I'm not gonna say practice Islam, because there's very limited that you can practice with regards to Islam in America. But while you can claim Islam and practice what little bit you can practice, it's not a threat. Because the same way that you may have out of 10 people that's involved in the community, 2 of them are upright, the other 8 are dibbling dabbling. And when you're dibbling dabbling, you weaken the rest of the community. So they don't see that person as a potential threat. Matter of fact, in the late 90s, early 2000s, even up until now, the whole snitch culture became popular. What they do is they'll get somebody got some old drug charges or something like that, and they get to them to learn the philosophy of the imam, and some things that the imam express is Islamic, and its concepts. Some stuff may not be, right? So then they create this whole thing about terrorism and locking people up based on ideology, what they believe, right? You don't believe me? I'm a product of that. I think it was in 2005. 2005, I was questioned. I was brought in by the feds, questioned by a grand jury. They were investigating one of my old martial arts teachers. They were investigating them, and they charged him for terrorism and all this other stuff. But it's funny that he got locked up because we always used to think he was an agent. That's a whole nother story. So, but anyway, so we get there, and they asked me about an ayat in the Quran. The ayat that's known as Ayatul Saif, right? The ayat of the sword, where it talks about jihad. And he was asked me. And so what happened was when they brought me in, first I was interrogated by what you call them, U.S. District Attorney and 2 federal officers, right? And they knew my whole jacket. They knew I got accepted at Medina University. I was supposed to go to Jamiatul Aman in Yemen and all these places. They asked me to work for them, right? So anyway, so they asked me all these series of questions, with regards to Islam and stuff. And I'm like, man, you know what? I'd rather burn in hell than tell a lie, right? So I ain't gonna lie. So he's like, well, what about this ayat? I said, this ayat about jihad, about fighting in the way of Allah. I mean, it's either you or hellfire. I'll sit in jail any day before I go to hellfire. I was just that convicted. I was like, look, it is what it is, right? So then they proceed to ask me about the brother. Did he ever talk about jihad? And I'm like, listen, they asked me, does anybody ever talk about jihad? I said, you know better than we do because you study our stuff. I said, what is the rewards of a person who dies on a battlefield? Well, yeah, you get them virgins in your life. You get all your sins forgiven. You're a Kafir. So you're telling me, and you gonna ask me, did a Muslim ever talk about jihad? Like, come on, are you serious? So they all laugh. All right, so you don't want to the next question, right? So they asked me all these questions about the guy, and I'm like, look, man, I'm from the streets. Ain't no rat in here. You see what I'm saying? Like, no, I don't know. Yeah, so anyway, so he was like, all right, well, just wait here. So I'm sitting there in this room where they just finished interrogating me. So then they proceed on, they took me into the room. It's like a double doors like this, went in there, and there's a big round seat in the middle, and it looks like a stadium, right? It's probably like, I don't know, I think 50 people, at least 50 people there. And I didn't realize I was on the stand, grand jury. And if I would have been found for perjury or anything like that, they would say I was facing 16 years. So I'm like, man, I didn't even know this is what I walked into. So I'm sitting there, and they asked me about an ayat from the Quran. And they said, what is your understanding of this ayat? Now I said to myself, wait a minute. I thought you guys was questioning me about the other brother, but now you ask me about my belief about an ayat? I said, I can't say anything different than what any Muslim would say. It's about jihad. It's about fighting in the way of Allah. Okay, they asked me this question, asked that question, told me to sit in the room, and then they came back. They was like, well, we see that you have no connection to any terrorists or anything like that, so, you're free to go, And I'm sitting there like, wow. But you're asking me about terrorism. Only thing I seen was you asking me about ayats in the Quran. I'm like, you got me, gripped me up all the way from Philadelphia, bring me back to New York to question me. You asked me a couple questions about the brother, but you see that was going nowhere. But you questioned me about the Quran. So my case in point is that there has to be, some level of knowledge there. Has to be some level of knowledge. And everything with the Medina program is to protect and preserve, because it's all about preserving the deen. So anyway, the Medina program is based off of one ayah. Well, Allah Ta'ala, He says in the Quran, وَتَعَوْنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَوْنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَعُدْوَانٍ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. Allah Ta'ala, He says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Ma'idah, help each other towards bir wa taqwa, righteousness, and having consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Very important. Our relationship with one another should be based on that. Remember, I was going back and I was talking about, the old versus the young, and were you born Muslim, or did you embrace Islam in prison? And she just took shahada for some man, and this person. We worried about all the wrong stuff. We supposed to be encouraging each other on bir wa taqwa. How do you do that? New Muslim come in, embrace him, show him how to pray. Teach him how to make wudu. Don't do the old school, here's this book, inshallah, read that. That should help you. Here's a kufi for you, sheikh, or here's a khimar for you, sister. Inshallah, Jummah starts at 1 o'clock on Friday. Sit down with them. Because personality, having a personal relationship with someone is more informative. And it gives more information about Islam than just giving them a book, slide them a book, yelling at them a couple ayats, show them what them ayats mean. This is the effect that the Prophet ﷺ had on people. It helped them to build taqwa, to righteousness and consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then in the same ayat, Allah ta'ala, he says, وَلَا تَعَوْنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَعُدْوَانًا. And don't help each other on sin and transgression. What you find today is the Muslims are aiding each other in sins and transgression. This is what you're finding. We're supposed to be doing birr wa taqwa. So because the way everything is and how crazy things are, you have to create a safe haven, a safe space for yourself. And sad to say, I've seen people do it. That safe space, I'm just going to worry about me and my family. It doesn't work like that. Islam is not it's not a religion. It's a deen. It's a complete way of life. It starts from going to the bathroom, making a ghusl. When you become Muslim, the first thing you're told to do is make ghusl. The beginning of your affair after your shahada is you taking a shower, you bathing yourself. Then you learn how to use the bathroom, how to clean yourself after the bathroom. I'm telling you, I was amazed at this stuff. I'm telling you, my man told me I was dirty. I couldn't even believe he told me that. Right? Blew my mind. Then he told me, you got to clean yourself with your left hand and you got to eat only with your right hand. I'm like, whoa, all right, cool, I'm right-handed. But that wiping with the left hand thing, that joint ain't working for me. But I did it until it became natural, right? These are the things that you learn. This is what Islam, but you have to create the environment for it. And it starts at home, right? Most people are like, man, we need a Muslim nation. We need an Islamic society. Start at home. You ever go visit people? Well, maybe not. You visit people, some people, you go to their homes, they ain't got no extension bottle. No extension bottle. That's the first thing, a tahara. Extension, you clean yourself with water. That's missing. But we talking about reviving a Khalifa. The Khalifa make a stingy. So should you. You see? It starts from that point on. That's how you establish Islam. From that point. I'm not making a cop-out. Trust me, because I done heard people say that. We worried about a Khalifa, but we don't even know how to make wudu. Okay, fine. Let's learn how to make wudu. Keep going. Right? No. Most people tell you about you don't know how to make wudu. Teach you wudu and stop you in the midst. First, you wash your hands up to your wrist, and we'll have the next class next week, inshallah. You're like, right? They're not teaching you really what you need to get through, because society, Islamic society, is built from wudu, all the way up. And if you look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how they all started with education. From A to Z, and it never got abandoned. It's repetitive. See, we have to get out of the system, the supremacist systematic, mind state. There's really no end game to knowledge. There's only knowledge that's beneficial and non-beneficial knowledge. Non-beneficial knowledge is really considered information. Knowledge that's benefit is knowledge that you can use and act on, right? So, but anyway, let me just move forward. So the first point of the 10-point Madinah program is learning your proper belief. Your aqidah, your belief, according to Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, according to what the Muslims believe, right? Very important thing, because most Muslims well, as long as this, or that's too much fighting, or too much. This is what starts to separate you. You can't have a Tajdeed movement. You can't be talking about revival if you just like everybody else. What stands out about your movement versus theirs? See, most movements now in America right now, they don't stand out. The only thing that stands out is they got different sheikhs. And their sheikh has a different madhab from the other sheikh. So there's no real clear distinction. They still have the same problem. Many people eat haram meat. Many people aren't praying properly. Many people aren't doing this, aren't doing that. There's really no real distinction. Everybody still looks the same. And your aqidah is what the first thing that separates you. What is that? Will you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then also that you have to understand too, and it also depends on your teacher, when you're learning your belief system, when your belief affects you, it makes you move. It makes you stagnant. It makes you move. You don't just talk about hellfire, but you start doing things that keep you away from the hellfire. You don't just talk about it. Man, the fire of hell is hot. You can describe it. Its intensity is 70 times hotter than any fire in this life. You can talk about all the punishments of the grave, but then we still do the same thing we've been doing before we was Muslim and even after you're Muslim. Real knowledge makes you move. It does something to you, right? It makes you a better person. So the first thing you have to you're concerning and you're fortifying. This is how you protect your deen, is by learning the proper belief. There's some Muslims. There's like I mentioned a couple contemporary issues, like with Iblis alayhi salam. I mean, Latin Allah alayhi. A'udhu billah. See, subhanallah, right? Latin Allah alayhi. May Allah curse him, right? One of the biggest mistakes that most Muslims that converted to Islam, they mix that belief that Iblis, Shaitan, right, Lucifer, according to the Bible, was a fallen angel. He's not. He's a jinn, right? Allah says this in the Quran, clear. He was honored to be amongst the angels because he was a pious worshiper at that time. Now, there's a key lesson in this, because many of us, we get Shaitanic-like. When we get pious, right, we do become arrogant, very arrogant, right? We become very arrogant once we become pious. I mean, all 5 my salats. What about you? Right? Like, yo, that's your brother, man. Ain't my brother, man. You don't pray on 5 like I do. Right? What is Shaitan? Now, this is also another clear sign. Did not Shaitan become very opinionated and feisty with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and argue with Allah? Allah said, bow down. He's like, I ain't bowing down to him. You crazy? I said, man, I'm better than him. What's wrong? Now, hold on. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala you're talking to. So what about us? I can't pray on 5. I ain't getting no polygyny. I ain't got nothing to do with polygyny. I ain't wearing no kufi. I ain't growing no beard. I ain't doing. We got a bunch of I don't knows. A lot of us resemble Shaitan. Right? Aqidah, belief. So these type of things, these things happen. So you have to protect yourself with a sound belief. You have to have a sound belief. Not so you can argue. It's so that you can get to Jannah. That's what belief is supposed to do. Right? The best book to ever learn any Aqidah from is the Quran. Not Tahawi, right? Not Jawhar Tawheed. These books are tools utilized to help you understand a little better. But the best book you can ever learn your belief from is the Quran. So the second thing that he mentioned is we intend to revive and establish the outward actions of Islam. First and foremost, the 5 pillars, right? The Shahada. That's the first one, and we all take that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. The Salat. Some people make 5, some people don't. Fasting Ramadan. Now, I'm not talking about people who have illnesses or things like that can't fast. Some people don't fast. One of our biggest issues, the communal issue, is we don't know if we fasting on the right day or not. Alhamdulillah, y'all blessed, man. Brother Yusuf, go out, look for the moon every month. Be grateful. Sometimes a system. Be grateful you got somebody that do it. Because you got a conundrum that's going on around the country. Everybody looking on Facebook, YouTube, everything. Yo. I remember one year people stopped fasting 3 days early. I never forgot this, because us in Philly, we look for the moon ourselves, right? We don't fast like based on the calendar or anything like this. So this one year, the people who follow Saudi said, Ramadan stopped. And it was like 2 days early, right? So, we still fasting. People run into us and people in our community and stuff. You guys still fast? You still fasting on Ramadan? I was like, y'all did a 28-day fast, right? People ridiculed us, made mockery of us. And we went out there, look, we seen that moon. It was like we just won the championship. We jumping around, Lord, yeah. It just grew the hearts even stronger, right? Because we were doing this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We wasn't worried about what everybody else was doing, right? People will make mockery of it. They'll ridicule you because of this. Like, oh man, you guys looking for a moon? We ain't gotta do that. We got the ulama for that, right? But anyway, so establishing the 5 pillars. Zakat. Zakat. What's that? Most people think zakat is either when you put money in the bucket on Friday, Or when you complete your fast of Ramadan, you pay zakat al-fitr. Zakat what? What zakat? Zakat who? And a lot of this is a result of what we're going to get to in some of the points going down. A lot of this is a result of not having sound Islamic leadership. Not having sound Islamic leadership, right? Hajj, well, the prices of Hajj is getting so ridiculous, especially in the conditions and situations that's going on. Y'all may not be feeling the squeeze like we feeling it up north, but, you're getting down to a point now, it's either rent or electric, right? You pay rent or sit in the dark. This is what most people, this is their dilemma now, right? Rent or we ain't gonna eat. That's most people's dilemma now. So, and now you're talking about Hajj, which is running about nine racks, $9,000. Right? When I became Muslim, Hajj about $1,500, if that. Now it's like 9,000. Right? And people are in a dilemma now. They're like, I don't know. So most people, it goes out the mind, out of sight, out of mind. You ever heard that term? So when you start talking about 5 pillars, I think we've been reduced down to 3. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said this in a hadith. He said, la yabqa. He said that there's a coming up on a time of Ahlul Zaman. There's going to come a time on the people of the time where la yabqa min al-Islam illa ismuhu. There'll be nothing left of Islam except his name. So meaning that it's implying that the people will abandon his pillars. How do you abandon Islam but there's only the name left? When there's plethora of Muslims, with many Muslims. How is this so? Because of the actions that Islam requires of you. Many people aren't praying. Many people aren't fasting. Many people aren't living up to what they're supposed to, right? So the third point is talib al-ilm, seeking knowledge. This is something that's become almost taboo, or seeking knowledge has become now. I'll just sit back and read this book. I ain't got to deal with y'all no more. Right? You have that empirical knowledge. Empirical knowledge where you learn things from experience. You have that. You have knowledge, the textual knowledge, the knowledge that you learn from books, right? Within that empirical knowledge, you are not just experience, but you also learn from other people. The same way a person, you get people that get lucky, but you can't operate a lawnmower without either reading instructions or somebody showing you. Otherwise, you may make a mess. You might mess around, put the wrong kind of gasoline in the machine, right? You can't even do a truck like that. Yeah. Like I said, I work EMS. I've seen people take an ambulance, which is primarily diesel, and put gasoline in there, then go out of service, can't use the truck. Right? You need knowledge. And the knowledge that you need has to be knowledge that is of benefit. Knowledge that can be applied immediately. Right? And this type of knowledge, the knowledge that we're learning in order to preserve, in order to hold family traditions. Someone teaches you what somebody else taught you, what somebody else taught you, what somebody else taught you. Like one thing I mention it all the time, a lot of people can relate to it, right? One thing my grandmother always taught me, and I don't know why, and I like usually have a fit, you guys, my children, make sure you wash your feet. I really don't know the significance of why she emphasized on it so much, but it was always, make sure your feet clean, right? And I think my feet are whiter than my actual skin. My feet are actually whiter than my skin. If my children's feet dirty, you ask my children, they'll tell you, I won't let you get in my bed. You better not walk on my floor. You get out of here, you're just trifling, right? I don't know why, but this is just something that was just passed down. And I'm pretty sure when they have their own children and get married, they're going to say, get out my bed with your dirty feet. Don't come in here with them dirty feet. They're going to tell you the same thing. I don't know why I did it. My father told me, your grandfather told me this, that our great-grandmother said this. And then their children will probably pass it down. You see what's happening here? You're creating what they call a chain, right? Our Islam is taken from people. When I learned Salat, I didn't learn Salat from a book. I learned from another human being, right? Whether right or wrong, there was a certain level of trust there, I trusted what he said. Those things that I was insufficient in, Allah guided me to what's correct. But I took the knowledge from the person. And I practiced it until I learned. I was always open-minded and very optimistic. Right? I wasn't ever closed-minded. Right? So what we do, we started learning the truth. And most of the time when you learn, it was backed up with Allah and his messenger. So you learn to start correcting your mistakes. But we're taking that away. That's no longer existing. Everybody's taking their book and going in their corner. And the only thing we do now is those things that we call that are obligated upon us. See, when you're seeking knowledge, you're preserving the deen, and you're teaching and passing down how the correct way of worship. Most people think that giving dawah is just you sitting down talking to people and telling them that Jesus isn't God or whatever God you worship isn't the right God, but only Allah is the true God. That's step one. Step two is have a conversation with them about salat. Step three, teach them about tahara, teach them how to make wudu. Dawah doesn't stop until you hit the grave. It's either you hit the grave or you apostate from Islam. That's when your dawah stops. Other than that, there's no stopping the dawah. You know, every time you go in the room and you don't even have to give the awkward silence. Sometimes, you go visit family. I don't recommend it on holidays. I'm sorry. That's taboo for Muslims. It used to be anyway. But, you maybe go around after everybody done eating Thanksgiving, right? Catch them at the Cowboys games, the Cowgirl games, right? I'm a Giants fan. I don't care about the Cowboys. So anyway, catch him at the game. You ain't gotta go in there. I don't mess with the people of Kufr. You don't gotta do all that. You go watch the game. They gonna ask you, yo, cuz, what's that? Why you wear your pants so high, cousin? Oh man, because of the sunnah, the prophet say something, this, such. Well, who is Muhammad? Oh, you wanna know? You really wanna know? All right, I'm gonna sit you down and talk to you about it. This is how you open the door for dialogue. We get stuck on one thing and handpeck that thing until there ain't no more. Ain't no more. One of the things that I wish, my grandmother almost took shahada, right? And we didn't go at it. We didn't argue a lot. We didn't argue at all, matter of fact. Every once in a while, I think one time I did argue with her, I got kicked out the house too. I told her it wasn't no Holy Ghost. She kicked me out of the house about 3 days. I had to sleep in the masjid for 3 days. It was cool though. Needed some time alone, right? But anyway, she almost took shahada. No, she almost took shahada. We used to sit down, me and her used to sit down and watch the movie, The Message. The movie about the life of the Prophet. We sat down, we used to watch it. And when we got to that part where they went to Abyssinia with Najashi, I don't know, it done something to her. It did something to her. And she was ready. I went to the masjid to go pray Isha. I came back home. And she was listening to Frederick Price, and she changed her mind. Because I tell you that televangelism, boy, that thing is criminal. But anyway. So they're seeking knowledge. And seeking knowledge is an obligation. It's not a choice. It's something that's an obligation upon you. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Talibul ilm fariidatu ala kulli Muslim." Right? And seeking the knowledge. Now, if you're familiar with Arabic grammar, the alif lam before the word, al-ilm, when you put aleph lam before the word, it makes the word specific. It's like putting the word the, right? Like in English, if you put the word the before, word, like you say, the book, right? It's talking about a specific book. But if you say a book, it's talking about any book. It's not specific, right? The Prophet said talibul al-ilm, the knowledge. And it's talking about preserving the knowledge that will benefit, the knowledge that's preserving the deen, those things that are incumbent upon you to know. Because how is it you're learning about all these things that isn't incumbent upon you, that doesn't affect your afterlife? People are studying on whether or not you should use the word salafiyya, whether or not it's permissible to be sufiyya, but don't know how to properly make wudu. Can't tell you what breaks your wudu, right? Can't tell you what are the conditions of prayer. But they can argue with you about whether or not the word salaf was used during the time of the Prophet ﷺ or not. You see what's going on now? Knowledge of benefit and knowledge that of no benefit. Knowledge of benefit is something that you can use right away. It affects you and it changes you right away. The more you learn, and when you pray properly, you learn how to pray. Just like the Prophet ﷺ said, if there was a river in front of your door and you bathed in it 5 times a day, would you be considered dirty? No, you'd be clean. He said the likeness of that is how it is with the 5 prayers. So you're going to change. You're going to change. The more you pray them 5 prayers, that's just a start. The more you pray the 5 prayers in the masjid is even better, right? Think about it, because this is the thing. This was a problem when I was Muslim. I mean, when I was younger in my Islamic years. Sorry. My younger years, we used to argue whether or not you should pray in the masjid. They'll say, oh, it's only sunnah, it ain't obligatory, right? Now, let's look at it from the words of the Prophet ﷺ. For the men who pray in Jama'at, in the congregation, in the masjid, how many times is that prayer rewarded by? 25 or 27. Every single time you pray in the masjid. If you prayed outside of the masjid without any reason of why you couldn't go to the masjid, okay? Let me phrase that. Because there's times when you pray outside the masjid, you pray where you at, right? But I'm talking about, it's a Saturday night, you're tired, you don't feel like going back out. It's time for Maghrib. Usually pray in the masjid, I don't feel like it. If you pray at home, your prayer is still accepted. But will it be rewarded the same amount to 25? No. Will your wife receive the reward of getting her 25? Yes. You see the difference? There's a difference of an action being accepted and an action being rewarded. This is why these things are multiplied. Juma, right? There's a hadith. If you don't understand what's going on, you'll be misinformed. It mentions about when a person, the first person that gets to the masjid, right? He talks about them. They receive the reward of a camel, right? See the reward of a camel, and it gets on down to the last person that gets there before the masjid, before the imam gets, at the minbar, he get an egg, right? Now, egg is no comparison to a camel, okay? Now, the people who come there after the imam is already talking, it says in the narration that the angel stopped writing your name amongst the people of Juma and closed the book. So most people that misunderstand, they be like, well, I ain't gonna get counted for Juma anyway, so I might as well not even be going. This is where ignorance ranks supreme over knowledge. That is an ignorant thought. You have to fulfill the obligation. You will get written down for fulfilling the obligation, but you will not receive any extra reward. Now let's go back to Aqidah. What is the thing that helps you on the day of judgment? It's called a scale, a wazn al-a'mal, the weighing of your actions. The more actions you do, the heavier your scale is. If your scale is heavy on the right side, then you'll be what Allah refers to in the Quran as Habul Yameen, the people of Jannah, right? If your scale is heavy on the left side, then you ain't did enough action. You're gonna spend some time in the hellfire. It's just that simple. So you may be fulfilling the obligation of praying at home, but you ain't getting those 25 reward, those 25 the 25 amount of blessings for praying at salat. So that makes your scale a little lighter. You'll get some reward for it. You'll get the reward for fulfilling the obligation, but you ain't getting nothing extra. That's where that mentality comes from. When you start, seeking knowledge and learning properly, you'll have a different approach towards things with Islam, with the Sunnah, with regards to the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The fourth thing that's mentioned is it's called shura, right? Mutual consultation. Now this is kind of controversial. It deserves some time to be spent, but we've been here. I've been talking long enough, so I'm going to give you a quick synopsis and a summary. Shura is not the same as democracy. It is not democracy. Democracy is an illusion. Shura with leadership. There's times where the leader will take shura with the entire community, but there's also times where the leader will take shura with those men or women that is in his council. It may be a smaller, intimate group versus having the entire community. We've seen both displayed, after the Prophet ﷺ and during his lifetime, right? So that is a short synopsis of shura. They take shura to decide on a matter that's going to be for the benefit of the community, that will be the benefit, or if it's something that will harm the community, they take shura on those particular issues. Most people today, they usually argue and say the imam doesn't take shura. That's because they expect a democratic voting. If you had a box and you'd be like, cast it, and which I actually seen in the masjid, come and put your vote in here. What you would like. Would you want this imam still to be the imam, or put it over here? Anything that you should recommend. we shouldn't even have that kind of consultation box. You should see the imam as salat, like, look, Sheikh, don't you think we need more toilet paper? Right? People will break up a whole masjid because the imam don't keep enough toilet paper. You know how you solve that problem? Just buy the toilet paper, put it in the masjid. Right? Just buy it, put it in. Nobody even has to know. It's anonymous. Just drop it all. Imam, alhamdulillah, man, somebody was generous enough to drop off toilet paper. MashaAllah, right? Sometimes I come to the masjid, we have water stacked up to the top of the wall. We sitting there like, wow, where all these waters come from? Somebody just dropped them off. He was a donor. Same thing. Toilet paper, poof. We never have an argument about toilet paper because somebody drops it. Somebody puts it in there secretly, right? We'll want to contribute and have a whole shura meeting and then be like, yo, you know what? We need to get rid of the imam because the imam, he didn't provide toilet paper, right? We'll do these type of things. And this is counterproductive. It doesn't help the community, right? So the next thing is the fifth thing, which is jama'ah. Because when you have sound aqidah, when you focus on the 5 pillars, right? When you have the seeking of knowledge, right? You become friends, close knit. Like, yeah, y'all 3 brothers, I always see y'all every time I'm here, right? Y'all brothers should be the tightest brothers in the masjid because y'all are always together seeking some sort of knowledge, right? I don't know if it's by coincidence or even by plan, but I always see y'all 3 here. You become close friends by the things you do. I used to have a brother that, we really didn't even know each other in Jahiliyyah, but he became Muslim, I became Muslim, and we used to walk together to the masjid for Fajr. You'd have thought we grew up together. That's how close we became, right? These things create unity. These things create unity. You eat together, yes. Travel together, yes. But when you're constantly together praying and seeking knowledge, y'all benefit each other. Y'all conversation is going to be something that's going to help each other. It's not going to be anything other than that. I mean, hey, okay, let's separate. Like, what is it? You the Tar Heels fan, you the Blue Devils fan, right? I learned that last time. How'd I know that? We was right here in the masjid. After the lecture, what we do? We start talking basketball. Your life doesn't go out the window because you became Muslim. We still engage in basketball. These are everyday common things, mundane. But guess what? Guess where we had this conversation at? The masjid. These things bring hearts together. This is part of building Medina, right? So, community, building Jama'ah. And of course, the thing is Jama'ah, you have to build it by holding on to Hablillah, like Allah said. The Quran has to be centered around these things. And don't just limit these principles to the masjid. Put them in your family. Your family is the Jama'ah. The Jama'ah is the family. That's what a Jama'ah is. It's a makeup of families. And out of all of the families there, you have one leader that represents and looks out for the common good. The same way that you have in your house. The families are little micro communities that makes up the macro, the large scale of the community. The same way in a household. Who's the head of the household? The husband, right? After the husband, in the absence of the husband, if you got sons and you got an older son, the older son's supposed to look out for his mother, right? It's not a thing where, the children, the parents is always looking after. Because think about inheritance. Anybody know who inherits the most after the death of the father? Son. Which one? The eldest son. The eldest son, right? All the sons, they get more than the daughters and the mother. Why is that? Because it's their responsibility to take care of their women. There's no such thing. Women are made to be protected, right? This independent woman or this boss lady, they ain't using the word lady. Y'all know what word she used. But anyway, this boss type of mentality, that is not a woman. That is not a woman. That has become the new idea of a woman. But if you took and put her great-grandmother next to her, you would think that she ain't had no great-grandmother. Like, who? What? Boss who? Yeah, you better go sit down somewhere. Come here and crack these peas open so we can make these green beans. Right? But that's missing now. So now they're more so the microwave mothers. To be honest with you, they Taco Bell mommy, right? Children growing up on processed food, got health issues, got diabetes at 12 and everything else. So what's happening? There's a structural breakdown. The man now is playing the role of a son. He's just an elder son. That he could just yell and scream every once in a while and threaten her with divorce. He's nothing but an extension of her son now. Right? The family is the makeup of the Jama'ah. If you got a sound family, right, then you'll have a solid Jama'ah. Jama'ahs always start with families. That's why you should always encourage the young to get married. It keeps the legacy of the community going. It increases it, right? You gotta encourage it young, because if not, then it's just gonna break up, and then their interest goes elsewhere, and then they get caught up in the whirlwinds of love, right? Because everybody's so in love now. They love you so much they tattooed their name all over their arms, right? This the new signs of love now. People doing stupid stuff in order to prove their love. I love you so much, I'll kill myself for you. I ain't killing myself. Anyway, Jama'ah, that's number 5. And then the last one that I'm going to speak of is number 6, is Imara, leadership, right? And why is it that leadership comes after Jama'ah? Because the group has to come together in order to pick the leader. Ishmael quoted a hadith earlier. Prophet says, 3 of you, out of the 3, somebody got to be the leader. The Jama'ah. Jama'ah comes from the word Jama'ah, right? Which means to gather collectively, to get together. Jum'ah. What do you think Jum'ah is? Jum'ah is Jama'ah. It comes from the same etymological roots, right? Jama'ah. That's what it means, to gather together. Jum'ah. Jum'ah used to be the place where you make all your special announcements, because everybody will come out, right? You have the masjid, you got the marketplace. Money get made on Fridays after Jumu'ah, right? That's why you don't work through Friday. Like, man, look, we make that money afterwards. You got the market set up right outside, the Jumu'ah let out, perfect time. Have your incense, oils, whatever you sell out there. You sell insurance after Jumu'ah. Y'all see that in some masjids in Philly. Sell insurance and, whatever their work thing is. Real estate agents. Hey, you looking for a house, man? So well, whatever you're looking for is right there, because all of these people are congregated under one roof. But the more we stay away and, the less we engage in everyday society activities, the least we have to offer to each other. The more you engage in it, this person may be a businessman, right? This person may be a lawyer. This person may be a doctor, or, work somewhere in the hospital, or got some strength. This person may be a social worker. You bring all those are resources within the community. Hey, I'm having some issues, right? Such and such, such and such. Oh, okay, I know the brother. Yeah, we see him. He usually come through at Maghrib, inshallah. I'll talk to him tonight and tell him give you a call. You start spreading your sources to make the community stronger, right? So leadership usually comes after Jama'ah, because when you're together, you start, the person, you be like, man, look, you're the person, you're the glue to this whole thing. Your character, your knowledge base and these things, this is why we're going to pick you as the leader. You have to work towards our common interests. The same way the family picks the husband, right? Like, he look like a good young man. He look like he could sustain the family. He looks like a man, I'll marry my daughter to him, right? How many people now are coming to the masjid to see somebody that they'll marry their daughter to? Ain't too many no more. Everybody like, man, I'm cool, you know what I'm saying? It's a little young brother in our masjid back in Philly. I met him, we sat together. I spent a little time with him. I was like, I'm married to my daughter. He's hyped. You gonna marry to your daughter? Yeah, I got you. And I put my son on his case. I'm like, yo, tail him, follow him a little bit. See what he doing. Does he make the team yet? He all right? They ain't get married yet, but I'm checking them out for my daughter. You know what I'm saying? I think his parents thought I was joking, but I wasn't. I was dead serious. So but leadership, and this is all based also in the Quran, where Allah Ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ati Allah wa ati Rasul wa uli amri minkum. Right? Obey Allah. Oh, you who believe, obey Allah, obey His messenger, and obey those in authority amongst you, right? Wa uli amri minkum, right? Now, of course, this is conditional, right? And, to get a full understanding, you have to get into it grammatically, but the condition is right there in that same sentence. Wa is what they call as atif. It connects the latter half of what's being said after it to the beginning half. Now, what did the ayat start off with? Obey Allah and obey His messenger, right? The second half, wa uli amri minkum. Wa is atif, it's a connector. Wa uli amri minkum, and those from authority amongst you, but that wow is connected to obeying Allah and His messenger, All right, you got to get the Arabic grammar to get that. You know, it just makes you like, wow, that's decent. Keep going, right? So, but you know, you have to pick your leadership. You know, amongst you. You want to finish up the last half?
No, go ahead, finish it.
Go ahead, finish it.
Yeah.
Okay, inshallah. So when you have a leader, right, it brings you up to this point, and then you'll be walking in the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ at this point, because everything from this point on, hijrah, all right, the concept of migration or exodus, all right. This doesn't mean we're all going to pack up, buy plane tickets, and go somewhere around the world where it's only a Muslim country. I'll say 98, I'll leave that 2% open. 98% of the Islamic world is just Muslims that live in a country together. They're Muslims that just live in a country together. They would be no different than all of the people in New Bern, all the Muslims in New Bern that live in one area, living in a non-Muslim society. That is all it is. They're leaders. They run their society according to either some sort of monarchy, right, which usually is a replica of Great Britain. My sociology teacher taught me this. I thought she was pulling my leg. You know, and she didn't just tell me this personally. It was in the class. And she said that where you at in a society, wherever Europeans colonized, the last thing that they always left with them, we was all like, the language. She's like, no, it ain't the language. It is the judiciary. They leave that judiciary there. There's one state in the United States where the French occupied and they still run their judiciary. It's ran under constitutional law, but it's still ran according to French concept. You know what state that is? Louisiana. Louisiana, because they said their concept is, the French concept is basically you're guilty, and the lawyers got to bring back the evidence to prove that you didn't do it. That's it, right? Versus everybody else, even though I know it's a lie, especially when you're a minority, innocent until proven guilty, that's what it's supposed to be. That ain't the case. If you look it up, you look up most African nations, right? They're Chinese, not Chinese, but a lot of little Asian countries and stuff like that. Their judiciary, their court system, so especially some of them African nations, they still, you remember the old white wigs they used to wear around the 1700s, and the red robe, and the judges sit there with that white wig on. I think they still do it in Europe today, in England. Okay. In a lot of them African nations, they still do that, right? So that's a sign of it. Now, how does that play with regards to us in Hijrah? Eliminate the idea that there's somewhere that you're gonna find in the Muslim, around the world where you can be this perfect Muslim. That's also another illusion. Americans, we live an illusionary lifestyle. We be like, man, if I just go to another area, it'll make me a better Muslim. You better learn how to be a good Muslim in the trenches, because if not, you faking jacks. If you ever go to Egypt, and I tell you this, you ever go to Egypt, and most people can testify to this. If you go to Egypt and you go over there, most people will tell you, stay away from Philadelphia Muslims. Stay away from them. They're in Egypt heavy, right? Especially you go to Cairo. You'd be like, man, what do you mean by that? Now, me, myself, I haven't been there personally, but there's been too many people that have been there, and they tell me all the stuff that they engaged in. They be like, really? They do all that? But guess what? It's not really just Philadelphia Muslim. The only reason why they're saying that is because y'all all are American. But in Egypt, it's corrupt as all outdoors over there. That thing sometimes worse than New York City, right? So, they had this little thing where, they prostitution ring, right? They run their prostitution ring religiously, right? So you'll meet a woman, you think you're going to get a nice, nice wife, and when they see Americans, they see dollar signs, right? Because at first, like a couple of my friends that went over there, they didn't believe because they were black. They didn't believe they was American. They like, no. You're supposed to be like John Wayne, Magnum PI. Where are you from? You're from Africa. You're not American, right? But once they found out they was American, there's black folks in America, they started seeing dollar signs like they was in a strip club. Yeah, make it rain, right? I have wife for you, brother. $3,000. You're like, $3,000 for what? $30,000 mahar, no big money in America, right? This happened to somebody I know. Got married. And the wakil was like, because you know with us, we get married, we giving the sister the 3 racks. We ain't giving the wakil the 3 racks. I know I need your father and all that, but I give it to her. You know what I'm saying? So he said $3,000, brother. And you know we get gullible when we get around other people in nationality. He's like, yo, okay, I give it to you. He gave it to him. The girl went off with him. Said she stayed the night with him, everything, whatever. And when he went to work, she's gone. Gone, right? Now, mind you, he married her. She was in full veil also. So when you get outside, how you going to know it's her? It's a hustle. I mean, and they do it. And they expose some of these, a lot of these things is recorded documentaries too. Somalia is guilty of that too. Somalia have the, what they call them, travel husbands. Right? It's just hustle. All it is prostitution. Right? It's prostitution under the disguise of Islam. You know, you hand off that dowry. They see dollar signs. You make it rain, baby. Magic City. Right? And they go in there, you get the dowry. You think you got you a good wife. Because we think all our women is impure, right? Impure American women. Give me a good old Egyptian sister. And she done spent you. And got you like you was in Brooklyn, New York somewhere. And you sitting there like, man, how'd I get had over here in Egypt? And I'm so hard on the sisters back in the States. It's all an illusion.
I don't even know the unseen see that though.
No, it's a sin, no doubt. But guess what? You just got spent. They just burnt you out your money. You had a good time. You better enjoy it because it just burnt you out your money. You just been burnt. You see what I'm saying?
Be practicing Islam.
Bruh, they're praying everything, man. One thing I'll tell you, I learned being Muslim with, and I had a conversation with one of the guys around my way when I first became Muslim in New York. I didn't even know they were Muslim. I just knew they was from, we were ignorant little kids, so we used to call them Habib and that's what we used to, we used to mess with them all the time. We go to the store, right? And so the one day, so one day the guy told me, he made a statement to me and it just triggered me. And he said something to me about, are you really, really Muslim? And I said, dude, man, don't question me about my Islam. I've been here all these years. You've been in my neighborhood selling all this stuff like that. And you ain't never said, man, you sell pork, man. Don't talk to me. And it just all came out. Because he asked me, was I really, really Muslim? You see what I'm saying? But, what you think is not over there, it's over there times 2. It's even worse in Saudi. You know what the number 1 cause of death in Saudi Arabia is?
Disease? The people?
Drunk driving. How's it drunk driving supposed to be a country full of Sharia?
Right.
I seen a documentary of Saudi, man. They got slums over there just like over here. It's the land of the Sunnah.
Wow.
It's ghetto everywhere. Huh? Because you know why? Because everybody's prototype is Fir'aun. And you have to oppress a group of people. And this is why Allah said it. He wants to make a group, the Mustafina, the weak group, and elevate them and make them the imams in the earth. Right? Because that group, because when you get money, you change. Let you get a good job. You start changing towards your wife. What? Well, don't back talk me. I get you out of here, boy. You know how much money I make now? You think you all that now. Right? We got a joke back in Philadelphia, right? They said, brother said, man, I gotta get me a wife that don't make $15 an hour. Because when you make $15 an hour, they talk back to you a little bit. If she make 20, she ain't gonna listen to you no more. Money changes you. So what make you think people, when they get rich, they ain't gonna look down on you and treat you different? If you do that right in your own household, like, you can't tell me, boy, I make my own money, get out of here, right? And that's what happens. So anyway, so Hijra. Now the concept, the reality of Hijra is, Hijra can be everybody just live on this one block. Then when you have everybody living on that one block, you got the masjid. The masjid is first, right? You're supposed to build a market after you build the masjid. Then you build your homes, right? In Maliki fiqh, a Juma isn't considered a valid Juma unless you have a Jama'ah. You have to have it. You have to have a community. They have to live near each other. They're supposed to be able to sustain that masjid. Nobody should be writing for government grants in order to, provide for the masjid. The masjid it's a waqf, it's supposed to be taken care of by the people, right? The leadership is supposed to make sure that that's being done. There's no such thing as we write grants and tax exempt forms and stuff, but I mean, that's what most people are doing today. So hijrah, when you migrate in order to preserve your Islam so it doesn't fade away. And the truth of the matter is a lot of us need to live closer to the masjid and to each other, because a lot of us, some of the things that we do outside of the masjid, we wouldn't be doing that if we see each other, right? For the weak, you need other people to see. The strong person, he's not worried about anything, anybody seeing him except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But for the weak, which is a good vast majority of us, when you see another Muslim, oh man, I ain't supposed to be doing that. I remember the days when you see a Muslim smoking a cigarette, he burn his hand trying to hide the cigarette. Alaikum salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh. How you doing? He rubbing oil hand on fire. And this is a result of that. This is why hijrah is so important, living together, community life, So the eighth thing is tasawwuf. Now a lot of people, just to clear your mind about tasawwuf. When the people are doing their dhikr or whatever they're doing, that is not tasawwuf. That's just a means of dhikr. Tasawwuf is concerned about purifying the heart. Majority of community, and it's not just in the American community, it's all over. People write books on this stuff, man. You just watch, you watch a movie, like Game of Thrones, right? There's always somebody trying to take over, right? One of the concepts of tasawwuf is the removal of what they call hubbul jah, love of leadership or love of rank, right? You're supposed to purify your heart of that. And if a person is volunteering for leadership, right, without rightful reason to do so, then you're not supposed to give that person leadership, right? Hubbul dunya, love of the dunya, right? A lot of American leaders fail because they haven't purified their heart from these things. First thing they usually fail, most leaders go out the window, it's because there's some kind of sex scandal, right? It don't matter what community, what religion, whatever. There's always some kind of sex scandal. Priests, they got some boys in the chamber, right? This person, they renting out girls and doing sex trafficking or something like that. It's always something, and this is why tasawwuf plays a vital part of these things, because you're supposed to purify your heart from these things. These things are sins. These are sins that are hidden. They're hidden from the eyes of men, but Allah Ta'ala knows the reality of it. And so sometimes a lot of us, because of the way that we love these things, we think that Allah Ta'ala doesn't know, right? And so we start maneuvering and trying to position ourselves in those type of things. Envy, hasid, right? AKA modern day, he's hating, right? Envy is haram. It's not permissible, except in one case. You're envious and you don't want the person to lose what they got, right? The Quran, reciting of the Quran, or benefit, or sadaqah, a person that gives sadaqah, right? These type of things. These are two things that's permitted to be envious of. But when I'm saying envy, I'm not talking about the kind of envy, because all haters don't want you to have what you got, right? Like, man, I don't even get that car from anyway. He probably got Reba, or he probably done robbed the bank, but probably still sell drugs. You start slandering the person when you're envious of the person. You'll make up things. You'll say anything, right? Most guys, when they get women, they got to put the other guy down in order to get the woman. He's a sucker anyway, baby. You need to be a real player, right? That's what most people do. Presidency. You elect the president. Anybody ever watch presidential debates? They put down the other president right in his face. He's incompetent. He can never do this because his wife ran away on a tennis court. You be like, right? He should be the president. I am the proper person to be elected. This is all anti-Islam. So we're missing that point. But what's over us is usually how we behave. So, but Islam, it teaches the opposite of that, right? So this is tasawwuf. You're reforming your character. The ninth thing that's mentioned, the ninth point of the 10-point Medina program is the souk, the marketplace. Now, if you want to go back in time, or if some of you were around, right? One thing that you got out of the nation, out of the Ansar and all those other pseudo-Islamic groups, they had one thing that they did. They will sell you a bottle of water. They'll sell you gloves if you ain't had no hands. they will sell you something. They'll sell you ice in a blizzard. Like, look, brother, I got this cold ice, man. Right here. You like, man, I'm freezing. It's all right, man. It's good for your hypothermia. They'll sell it to you. Today's Muslim, everybody is about being a wage slave. Now, if you're doing it as a means to an end, get busy. But if that's what you want to do, you want to dedicate yourself, and a wage slave is not just anybody that got a job. A wage slave is that person that can't get off that job in order to give Allah Ta'ala his rights. Because every time you think about serving Allah, you have to keep it in the back of your mind, I might lose my job. You be like, man, I might lose this thing. I don't know if I'm going to do it. That's what that is, right? We need to start encouraging our young to become entrepreneurs. Yeah, you can make a lot of money playing basketball. That's good. But don't let that be their end game, right? Educate them. Don't just push education on the girls, because we have a habit of doing that. Oh, girl, go to college, right? We don't have that same ambition for young boys. They don't even, matter of fact, most people, they don't even get acknowledged in most of their classrooms. You have to push the young man, keep pushing them, push them, support them. Tell them it's all right to get you. It's all right to learn. It's good, man. I'm telling you, it's honor in having jobs, right? You ever watch that movie called Bronx Tale? Anybody ever watch that? That's one of my favorite movies. That one thing that father did was he wasn't going to let his son become no daggone gangster. He's like, nah. And his son even disrespected him and said, man, Sonny is right. The working man is a sucker, right? Because he was influenced by that fast cash, that lifestyle. His father like, look, man, you think that's tough? He's like, he said, these guys can't get up and go to work every day. Their money is easy. I got to go out here and work, and I got to do all these different things. And he was right. He fought hard for his son. We don't push our boys like that. We don't push them. They need to be part of the Medina program, just like an adult has to be. We have to keep them there and show them how to do it. Some of the things I learned, and it's humble, it's humility connected to it. Matter of fact, you won't, as a young man, and I can say this, as a young man, you'll never learn humility unless you go out with another male and try to sell something. He teaches you how to be rejected, because everybody ain't gonna buy from you. A dope dealer, yeah, everybody buy dope. I'm hooked on dope. It ain't got because you got the good product. They'll smoke your product if ain't nobody else got nothing. So, it ain't dope, ain't got nothing to do with it. But when you able to go to somebody and they say, no, son, I'm not interested, that teaches you humility. When you walk around, go out to 10 people, and out of 10 people, only one person bought something from you, that teaches you humility. That's something that drugs can never teach you. That's something a job really can't teach you. A job can teach you humiliation. Because after 5 job interviews and no job, you start getting discouraged real fast. But if you're an entrepreneur, you pick back up like, all right, I got to go back in here tomorrow, right? Got to have that same ambition all the way around the board, whether it's a job interview or whether you're going out in the market. But the best way to teach a young man humility is put him out there to work. That's one of the things that I'm grateful for. I couldn't stand it because every summer my family in New York would send me down south. We would come down here. I used to stay at my uncle's all the time in Virginia, but we would come down here to Durham, buy watermelons, drive up the whole I-95 and sell watermelon. I mean, man, I ain't selling no watermelon, man. I got on fresh sneakers. They got on muddy boots. I'm like, man, what you doing, man? I got my shoe, dusting my shoes off. I was a little pretty boy. I'm crying to my mother at night. Well, they got a big mosquito, man. I don't want to be here. Right? My mother like, no, you going to stay down there. You going to stay down there. But it taught me humility, right? And it taught me some wisdom because they tricked me too. Because I used to play football. So they were like, nah, boy, you get down here and lift these watermelons, man. That's going to get you strong for football. I believed them. It kind of did work. I ain't going to lie. Right? Then I went to school for a short time and I played football in Virginia. And I'm like, man, these country boys big as an ox. Right? But when I got back to New York, I was like 10 times better than I was before I left, because it changed the environment. So I was like, hey, I learned. But humility. And so then the last thing, which is very important, I mentioned it earlier, but the last thing is what is called Hizbul Nasab wa Ahli, right? Preservation of your lineage and family. It's very important. Marriage, you have to promote that. And not only just marriage, but sustaining the marriage. Because young people get married. I had people at my match shit get married at age 17, 16, and, like one couple, I think they got married at 17, and that was about 4 years ago. They still together, right? They went to school. They still in school, matter of fact. But my case in point is, what's more important is them staying together, right? It's common, married Philly, everybody get married, right? It's very common, easy, married, You would think that people were actually toying with it, but they're not. They're serious. Young people are actually serious. They want to get married. I'm trying to do the right thing, da da da. And one of the hardest things for little young boys that's teenagers, staying away from girls. And now it seems to be the hardest thing for girls. I can remember those lectures from my uncle. Keep your head in the books and leave them pissy tail girls alone. That's all I used to hear all the time. It's hard to tell you that when you got girls eyeballing you every week, right? But as a Muslim, life is different. Because my family was teaching me it's wrong, getting to a girlfriend now. As a young Muslim male, you're telling them, like, yeah, when you get a wife, this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to do this, you're going to do that. My family didn't tell me to get a wife. Hey, leave them pissy tail girls alone, get your book. That's all it was. It'd be like, man, what's wrong with girls, man? You had girls. But as Muslims, you got principles. No, you're going to get a wife. But you still have to focus on doing this so that you can later, gain some gainful employment in order to take care of a family, right? So it's different dynamics. So now a lot of these, like I said, a lot of these younger boys now, they're getting married. Some of them are having a hard time staying married. That's the problem. Some of them have a hard time staying married. And probably a lot of their problem is they don't know how to say no. What do I mean they don't know how to say no? Because all these little girls want them. You see what I'm saying? All these little girls want them. Some of them do. But a lot of them be like, the problem is I done caught Rafiq with another girl, Imam, and I'm looking like, man, this little girl about 17 years old, and this boy say 18, you got to talk to him. And then this be the bigger problem. You have to know the people you're dealing with. They'll come in there, storming in there, Imam, I want out of this marriage because he's been cheating. And you're like, man, you looking at him, he feeling guilty. You're like, man, yeah, she right, man, I have, right? Now, my younger years, I wasn't thinking like this. Like, all right, that's it, divorce, right? That's how it's supposed to be. But then you see them, they still together. Like, what y'all still doing together? I thought y'all was divorced. He cheated on you, didn't he? Well, I still love him, man. So I started realizing, like, wait a minute. So now when they come, I got to ask them, what's the nature? I hear them out, both parties hear them out. And I sit down and I examine the situation. And I explain to them what's going to happen if they go this particular route. If you get divorced, this is what it's going to be, right? This is what this means. That's what that means. This is what that means. And if she's serious, she usually be like, I want out. Usually she ain't. She a little conflicted. She cries and boo-hooing. And then, so, when I see that, I'm like, then I turn to him. Can you see how serious this is? You could lose your wife behind this. Usually sometimes they straighten up, along those best. How the situation be. But you got to kind of like use it with a different eye of discernment now, right? But the overall objective of family, we don't want to open the idea, which is already out there. We want to close the idea. Can't save the entire ummah, but we can save our immediate families that's connected to us. We want to close the idea of having sexual relations without being married as a bad idea. Bearing children out of wedlock as a bad idea, right? You want to push these things out. You want to create standards. And you want to have family principles. And that's the same. You pushing those ideas out. Keep pushing them because in Islam, right? And this goes into a very controversial topic. In Islam, when a person, or when two people have a child out of wedlock, that child doesn't bear the father's name nor his lineage. He can't claim him, right? Why I say it's controversial, because most people are like, well, it's baby to bed, ain't my responsibility. MashaAllah, sister, that's you. No, that's not what that is, right? Even in non-Muslim societies, they had a thing, right? That's where the whole term bastard comes from, right? You had a bastard child. And so, like, some they used to have like formal names for like the child that wasn't, they'd be like, oh, that's such and such bastard son, right? And they weren't saying, they wasn't trying to be derogatory. It was a bad label to have. It was almost like equivalent to be labeled as a felon. That's a felon right there. You be careful around him, right? So same thing with a child born out of wedlock. But now we celebrate children that's born out of wedlock, and it cuts the connection of family ties. And I say this as an African American black male of African descent. Fornication and adultery should be the last thing on your mind. When in the plantations, they will make you fornicate and commit adultery. They will strip you of your children, send your children halfway around. That's why most of our lineage is jacked up now. They will strip you of that. Anything that can connect you, anything that give you any type of lineage. And if you know that within Islam, a child born out of wedlock doesn't bear from the father, doesn't inherit from the father, some of us, it's not a big deal, because most women are taught to be independent of a man anyway. You don't need a man. For what? Only thing he can give you is, right? At least that's the term in Philly. Or the other one is, there's a man like bus. He come every 15 minutes. I had a sister tell me that. She told me she wanted a divorce from her husband. I'm like, his man come like a bus every 15 minutes. Somebody walking by. I'm like, whoa, woo. Like, all right, well, I'll talk to her about this one tomorrow, right? But this is the type of mentality. So preservation of lineage, with some people, they have no real concern for their bodies. They have no real concern for their bodies, right? And it's affecting us. It's destroying us. That's a weapon used against us. It's a weapon used against us. So it's almost as bad as like chemical warfare, dropping a bomb on somebody. Have somebody fornicate. What they used to call them on the plantation? The studs? As you call dykes now. I mean, homosexual women. You call dykes now, right? Studs. Yeah, she a stud, huh? Stud? What's that? I thought you were talking about a horse or something. Come find these dykes. A stud right there. A stud. And that's what they used to call them in. They used to run them around the plantation, impregnate them. And this is what's happening now, right? And this is also another concept, and I think this is why younger women are embracing it. They can't control these young boys. It's all over the place. So a lot of younger women are embracing polygyny. They're like, sign me up. At least I know my husband is my husband, and he ain't it ain't working. Monogamy's not working for young black males no more. It's not working. And scaring them that you ain't got enough money ain't working either. They like, we figured it out. That's just the reality. Right? And if a man wants to have his family, then he gonna figure out how to take care of his family. You have to put pressure on him, right? The women should put more pressure on them than anybody. Us in the community, we're to educate them, right? And put the educational, moral pressure on them. But the real pressure comes from within, from the family. Because if you love your wife or wives, you're gonna do what you gotta do to take care of them. Otherwise, you're gonna lose them, right? But our families are being broken now because they're compromising and embracing fornication and adultery. And they're starting young. They're not starting old. They're not fornicating in their 20s. They're fornicating in their teens. It's starting in their teens. And that's realistic. That's what we're doing. And so why is this part of our 10-point Madinah program? Because we want to vet out or eradicate the thought of fornication and adultery. We want to eradicate that because that's what Islam does. Islam wipes away what came before it. We don't want that no more. We want to have whole families that inherit from each other, where you have a name. Your name means something, right? Your last name ain't just connected to your plantation where you came from or who your slave owner was, but your name represents nobility, right? When they say your name, your statement, your name rings bells, that's what it's supposed to mean. Oh, this is such and such son. He can say it with honor. That's my father. Y'all know how my father is. You remember my father, right? That brings nobility because a family's honor comes from the nobility of their family. You know my mother. My mother, we used to have a sister in New York, her name Sister Jenna. She used to cook all the food. Anytime you say her name, it's like, oh, Sister Jenna, when I used to cook. That's how you become known. You're known from noble characteristics, right? And this is what lineage does. It reconnects us and reunites the family, and all of that preserves the Jamaat. So with that, I won't take up no more of your time, inshallah. I thank y'all for listening to me. And if I bored you and put you to sleep, please forgive me. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
Time to Salat to Isha.
Now,
We make Isha and we're going to eat.
okay, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. I always love food.